In this video, we will build a beautiful cinematic notification badge animation using nothing but pure HTML and CSS. Let's build a highly unique pulsing alert micro interaction. I'm going to show you how to write out a multi-layered ring radar effect step by step, featuring an elite CSS keyframe engine that handles scaling and opacity variations smoothly without causing any layout jitterbugs. Let's jump into the body tag, which is where our visible elements are going to live. First, I'm going to open up our structural trigger layout by typing out a div with the class NotiWrapper, setting role equal to button, and assigning an ARIA label field value, notifications panel trigger. This forms the primary outer bounding box that acts as our dark luxury component framework. Inside this wrapper layout, I'll establish our graphics display layer by writing an inline SVG tag with the class selector bell-icon and a modern vector view box configuration setting. Inside the vector element, I'll add a path tag mapping out custom coordinates to construct a professional alert bell silhouette line drawing, and then close out our path and SVG tags. Directly underneath that graphic box, I'll build our alert anchor target by writing an empty span tag with the class badge-dot, and then close it up immediately. Now that our structural elements are ready, let's back up inside our style tags and add the CSS as it appears on screen line by line. First, I'm going to use the body selector to target our overall page canvas space. Inside the body rules, I'll write margin 0 to strip away default structural margins from the browser layout engine. Then, I'll specify height 100 VH to force our staging area to occupy the full vertical workspace height of the viewport. Now, I am going to use display flex to turn our body layout into a flexible box layout engine context. I'll follow that up with justify content center to align our alert box horizontally in the exact middle of the screen. Next, I'll write align item center to align it vertically, locking our entire preview framework dead center on the display monitor. To frame our project perfectly, I'll type background color hash 0305 to paint our viewport canvas with a deep cinematic dark tone, and close our bracket. Next, let's target our main trigger housing layout by typing out the class selector.NotiWrapper. Inside this block, I'm going to write position relative. This is an absolute mandatory line because it anchors the absolute badge dot precisely over the top right corner of our frame bounds. I'll define explicit boundary dimensions for our wrapper box by adding width 48 pixels and height 48 pixels. Then, I'll use background color hash OBOF19 to style our base theme with a rich, dark navy tint. I'll create a clean outer boundary framework by writing border 1 pixel solid hash 1F2937. Let's curve our container corners smoothly by typing border radius 14 pixels. To coordinate our internal icon layout, I'll write display flex, justify content center, and align item center to lock our vector paths exactly in the middle. I'll set color hash 94A3B8 to tint the icon, use cursor pointer to give users touch feedback, and add a smooth transition color 0.2 seconds, border dash color 0.2 seconds, and background color 0.2 seconds. Let's trigger our standard box state changes by creating a hover selector for .NotiWrapper:hover. Inside, I'll add color hash FFFFFF, border color hash 374151, and background color hash 111827, so the frame shifts dynamically on cursor presence context. Next, let's target the inner graphic paths by writing the selector.bell-icon. Inside, I'll set dimensions with width 24 pixels and height 24 pixels, declare fill none, and write stroke device rules using stroke intensity parameters, stroke current color, stroke width 2, stroke line cap round, and stroke line join round to keep lines clean. Now let's shape our main notification point layer by targeting the class selector.badge. Inside, I'll write position absolute to remove it from TextFlow grids, and space it from the upper right boundaries by typing top 10 pixels and right 10 pixels. I'll lock its boundary footprints by adding width 8 pixels and height 8 pixels. I am going to paint it with a vivid, high-contrast crimson tint using background color #EF4444. Let's turn the square box into a perfect circular dot by typing border radius 50% and add z-index 10 to float it high above our structural layers. Now for the ultimate pure CSS infinite ring radar pulse aura engine. I'm going to target our background glow element using the pseudo-element selector .badge ::after. Inside this block, I'll write content empty quotes to initialize our virtual layout context. Then I'll write position absolute to anchor its track, and use inset 0 to stretch its boundaries to match the parent dot automatically. I'll add border radius 50% to maintain a circle, and paint it with the identical red shade by writing background color #EF4444. Now, I am going to bind our custom keyframe loop configuration track by writing animation pulse-ring 2 seconds cubic-bezier 0.40 0.61 infinite. Finally, I'll write z-index -1 to push this virtual layer safely behind our solid crimson dot element and close the bracket. Let's chart out the mathematical animation instructions by declaring our keyframes track using the selector at keyframes pulse-ring. Inside our starting frame marker at 0%, I'll add transform scale 1 and opacity 1 to set a tight, solid footprint right at the base position. To finish our entire script layout, I'll group our final markers together by typing 70%, 100%. Inside this final block, I am going to write transform scale 3.5 and opacity 0. This stretches the pseudo-element ring outward to 3.5 times its initial dimension, while bleeding its opacity completely to 0, closing out all remaining curly braces. Look at the screen now. As we hit save, our code executes cleanly. Our notification component sits perfectly on our dark workspace studio layout canvas. The static red dot anchors flawlessly over the bell's top shoulder. Thanks to our hardware-accelerated cubic-bezier keyframe system, the absolute pseudo-element layer continuously generates an infinite ring aura that expands outward smoothly and fades into the dark canvas shadows seamlessly to capture user focus instantly. Thanks for watching. If you found this real-time build helpful, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. See you next time.